Have you ever wondered how financial experts, the very people who give advice to clients every day, actually invest their own money? Do they really practice what they preach, or do they struggle, feel fear, and make emotional decisions just like the rest of us? In How I Invest My Money, Brian Portnoy and Joshua Brown bring together more than 20 top financial advisors to share their deeply personal stories about how they use money. And you might be surprised. Behind the numbers, reports, and portfolios, money turns out to be tied to childhood memories, family, and the deepest personal beliefs. This isn't a book about which stocks to buy or how much you should put into a retirement fund. It's a book that makes you ask yourself, what does money really mean to me? How am I using it to build the life I want? If you've ever felt torn about money, wanting safety, freedom, and the ability to enjoy the present at the same time, then the stories in this book will show you that you're not alone. And if you want to keep exploring books that can change the way you think, invest, and live, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and follow along today. Part 1. Money is emotion, not just numbers. Right from the very first page, How I Invest My Money exposes a truth most people don't like to admit. Before money is math, money is emotion. The contributors to this book are seasoned financial professionals, yet when they talk about how they use their own money, they don't start with charts or formulas. They start with memories, fears, beliefs, and their own definition of what a full life looks like. Brian Portnoy calls the ultimate goal of money management funded contentment, meaning you use money to buy peace of mind, not to show off achievements. That peace comes from aligning your money with your values, family, freedom of time, mental health, contribution. When your vision is clear, your plan has meaning. And when your plan has meaning, you can be patient enough to stay the course. Why do emotions drive us so strongly? Because each of us carries our own money story. If you grew up in a family that was always in credit card debt, safety to you might mean keeping a savings account larger than what's necessary. If you lost your job during the 2008 crisis, you might always be cautious about risk, no matter how many headlines say the market always goes up in the long run. If your parents were immigrants to the US, saving might not just be a habit, it could feel like a promise to the next generation. The book explains familiar yet deeply human psychological patterns. We fear losing money more than we enjoy making it, so we're quick to sell when markets fall. We mentally bucket money. Vacation funds feel different from debt payments, even though dollars are interchangeable. And we favor the present over the distant future. Spending today feels easier than saving for ourselves 20 years from now. The point of recognizing these biases isn't self-blame, but designing systems that help us do the right thing even when emotions run high. That's why the people in the book don't brag about hacks to beat the market. Instead, they share soft but practical rules of thumb. For example, the good night sleep test. If an investment keeps you awake at night, that's a sign your allocation is off. Some hold more cash than textbooks recommend in exchange for the ability to rest peacefully. Some buy more insurance than strictly necessary because family stability matters more than a few percentage points of return. Picture a single mom in Ohio after the 2008 crash. Ever since, she's kept a 6-month emergency fund, even though colleagues say idle cash is wasted. For her, that money sitting still is a pillow for better sleep, the freedom to walk away from a bad boss, the shield when the car breaks down or the kids get sick. The returns she gave up bought her choices in hard times, and that's an investment worth making. Another example, a software engineer in Seattle. He invests steadily in index funds, simple, low cost, and no need to check the stock ticker daily. He knows he could hit a jackpot by picking the right stock at the right time, but what he wants isn't a cocktail party story, It's a high probability of reaching his milestones, buying a house in 3 years, retiring at 55, funding his kids' college. He optimizes for life, not for maximum risk. Others invest in the invisible. A financial advisor in New Jersey sets aside part of his income for books, courses, and family trips. On a spreadsheet, those are expenses. But in the story of his life, they're emotional dividends, connection, curiosity, and memories. When you define wealth as living according to your values, those outlays become part of your happiness portfolio. The book is also candid about the eternal conflict. Logic seeks long-term returns, while emotions fear short-term volatility. The solution isn't to eliminate emotion, but to build guardrails. Automate transfers right after payday to overcome inertia. Set rules like never sell in panic and check your accounts only on a fixed schedule. Choose a strategy simple enough to understand and stick with for decades. When the system is right, you don't need superhuman willpower every day. At a deeper level, the authors invite you to ask, what is enough for me? Without defining enough, you'll never stop chasing. Once you do define it, you can step off the comparison treadmill, resist trends, and stay grounded against the noise of social media. For one family in Texas, enough might be a small home, weekends with the kids, and steady retirement contributions. For a couple in Brooklyn, it might be renting near a park, traveling once a year, and funding their passion for art. Different answers, equally valid if they bring peace of mind. In short, the opening message is clear. Money isn't just arithmetic. It's your story, what you've lived through, what you value, and how you want to live. When that story is clear, your investment strategy naturally fits better, discipline feels less painful, and over time, the numbers take care of themselves. Part 2. Investing around personal values. One of the most remarkable things How I Invest My Money reveals is how it flips conventional expectations. We often assume financial professionals must be obsessed with maximizing returns, tracking growth charts, and competing on performance. But when you hear more than 20 experts share how they actually invest, you discover a different truth. Most of them shape their money around what they truly value in life, not around some abstract number on a spreadsheet. Each person has a personal North Star, and their portfolios become a reflection of that compass. For some, family is at the center. One father started a college fund for his children the day they were born. Every month, he contributes a few $100s, like marking the passage of time with love. For him, investing isn't about winning or losing a game. It's a promise that his kids will have educational opportunities better than he did. For others, success is measured in life experiences. A female financial advisor shared that whenever her investments perform well, she sets aside part of the gains for family trips. On paper, those expenses don't generate returns, but the value of memories, a warm dinner in Italy, or an afternoon stroll along the beaches of Florida far outweighs any number in a portfolio. Some shape their investments around social beliefs. They choose ESG funds, focused on companies that protect the environment or improve communities, even knowing the returns might be slightly lower than average. For them, money isn't just about personal wealth, but about shaping the kind of world they want to leave for the next generation. The key message of the book is clear. There is no single formula for everyone. There's no universal rule that says you must maximize returns at all costs. Instead, each person needs to define their own set of values, beliefs, and desired experiences, and let money serve those things. In the end, investing isn't just about finance. It's a deeply personal choice. What kind of life do you want your money to build? Who do you want it to support? And what do you want it to say about you? Through this lens, money stops being a burden and becomes a tool that helps you live in alignment with what matters most. Part 3. There is no one-size-fits-all formula.
One of the most surprising realizations in How I Invest My Money is how even people who make a living giving financial advice don't follow the same map. Each has their own way of allocating assets, and often those approaches are completely opposite. This shows that investing isn't about finding a golden formula that applies to everyone. It has to come from the individual and their unique circumstances. Some experts choose to keep most of their wealth in U.S. stocks. They believe in the long-term strength of the American economy, confident that with patience, the S&P 500 will deliver superior growth over decades. Meanwhile, another professional puts more than half of his portfolio into real estate. For him, owning rental properties not only generates steady monthly income, but also provides a sense of having something tangible, unlike the blinking numbers on a screen. There are also stories that run in opposite directions. One asset manager keeps almost no cash, convinced that money sitting in the bank dies a little every day. On the other hand, a female advisor always holds at least 12 months of living expenses in cash, despite colleagues warning her that it's wasteful. For her, that cash isn't an investment, it's a lifeline, a source of peace that helps her steer her career and care for her family. The book emphasizes a simple truth. If you ask 10 experts, you'll get 10 different answers because no two people live the same story. A single professional in New York will invest differently than a couple with 3 kids in Texas. Someone who grew up in poverty will view money differently than someone raised in comfort. That very diversity proves that no standard formula exists. Instead of chasing a magical blueprint, the more important task is to understand where you are, what you value, and what kinds of risks you're willing to accept. Once you're clear on those things, you can build a strategy you'll actually stick with over the long run.
Part 4. Discipline matters more than secrets. A core truth running through How I Invest My Money is this: rarely does a magic trick beat daily habits. The experts in the book don't brag about catching the perfect stock or predicting the market. Instead, they emphasize simple, repeatable habits, and it's those habits that produce lasting results. Why does discipline matter more than the perfect strategy? Because markets don't move in straight lines and human emotions constantly shift. Anyone can get lucky once or twice. Very few can make rational choices in the middle of panic when their portfolio drops 30% in a few weeks. Discipline is the system that keeps you acting wisely when your emotions scream to do the opposite. The book highlights a set of discipline principles repeated again and again. Automate, simplify, keep costs low, diversify, and stick to your plan. Concretely, automate. Set up automatic transfers into retirement accounts or index funds as soon as your paycheck arrives. When money leaves first, you're no longer tempted to spend it, and investing becomes the default. Simplify. Use low-cost index funds or ETFs instead of hunting for the next big winner. Simplicity makes your portfolio understandable and easier to stick with. Keep costs low. Fees and transaction costs eat away at returns. A difference of just a couple of percentage points annually can add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars over decades. Diversify and rebalance. Spread your investments, for example, between stocks and bonds, and periodically rebalance to your target allocation. Rebalancing forces you to sell what has surged and buy what has fallen. In other words, buy low and sell high. Preset behavior rules. Build if-then playbooks. For example, if the market drops 20%, I won't sell. Instead, I'll increase contributions. These rules prevent emotional decision-making in the heat of the moment. Here's what this looks like in practice. A nurse in Ohio sets an automatic transfer, 10% of every paycheck into her 401k, plus $200 a month into a total market index fund. She doesn't check prices daily. She reviews her account once a year and rebalances if necessary. After 20 years, it's her consistency, not a genius stock pick, that builds real wealth. Contrast that with an engineer who thought he could outsmart the market. He traded constantly on news headlines, trying to catch bottoms and sell tops. Yes, there were short-term wins, but transaction fees, taxes, and panic-driven mistakes dragged his overall returns far below those of his more patient colleague. The book also reminds us that discipline protects your sleep. Choose an allocation you can live with during volatility. If every market dip keeps you up at night, your allocation isn't right for you. Discipline is sticking with a plan that fits, because only then can time and compounding do their work. In the end, consistent action, automated systems, and clear behavioral rules in the face of volatility often produce greater results than chasing hot tips or breaking news. Discipline may not sound glamorous, but it's what turns strategies from ideas into reality. Part 5. Investing is about values and meaning, not just numbers. One of the striking differences in how I invest my money is that the experts don't talk about getting rich quick. Instead, they talk about how money reflects the values you live by. Many of them share that investing isn't only about generating returns. It's about making choices, what you want to prioritize, who you want to protect, and what kind of legacy you want to leave behind. Imagine this. You could buy a simple portfolio of index funds, and after 30 years, your retirement account would grow significantly. That's a solid strategy, but it's not the whole story. Some people choose to invest part of their wealth into their community or into businesses they believe make a positive impact. For them, returns aren't just about percentages, they're about alignment with personal values. In the book, one person shares how he invests in renewable energy companies, not because he expects massive profits, but because he believes it's the right path for the future of his children. Another chooses to buy a home close to family rather than chasing higher yields elsewhere, because for him, the true return is time spent with loved ones. This is something many Americans can easily relate to. For example, a couple in California decides not to pour more money into flipping real estate for quick gains, but instead builds a college fund for their children. Financially, they may miss out on big opportunities, but in terms of values, they've bought peace of mind and security for their kids' future. This is the philosophy Brian Portnoy emphasizes. Investing isn't always a race to see who wins more. It's a mirror of who you are, what you cherish, and the story you want your money to tell. In other words, money isn't just a tool to live, it's a way to live true to yourself. Part 6. Lesson. Write your own money story. If there's one key takeaway from how I invest my money, it's this. No two financial journeys are the same. Each of us carries different backgrounds, memories, fears, and aspirations, and those unique pieces shape our own personal money story. Brian Portnoy and Josh Brown invited more than 20 financial professionals to share how they actually use their money, not generic advice, but their real-life experiences. Some invested in the stock market, some bought real estate, some prioritized spending on family, and others put money into community projects. The fascinating part is that no two stories are alike, yet they all share one common thread. Each person shaped their financial journey in a way that truly fit them, instead of following some so-called perfect formula. The lesson here is simple. You need to write your own story too. Don't let money just be numbers on a balance sheet. Ask yourself, what does money allow you to do? Does it help you sleep better at night? Does it reflect the values you care most about? And what do you want to leave behind for your loved ones, for the next generation? Picture this. Someone in the U.S. buys a small cabin in the Vermont mountains, not because it's the highest return investment, but because it's a place where the family can gather on weekends and create memories. Another person chooses a modest home instead of a large mansion, trading space for the freedom to retire 10 years earlier. Both choices are equally valid because they serve the story that matters most to them. At the end of the day, there's no absolute right or wrong in investing, only what is or is not right for you. Once you start writing your own money story, money stops being a burden and becomes a tool to help you live a meaningful life. And that's the core message of how I invest my money. Let money serve the path you choose instead of letting it control you. Starting today, you can rewrite your financial story, a story that doesn't have to look like anyone else's, but one you can be proud of. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more financial book summaries that are insightful, relatable, and practical. Who knows, one small idea from these books could become a turning point in your own financial journey.